and welcome to Why Wait for Recovery. And I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery.
I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery as well. Good morning, and I'm going to fix this right here. Record video.
And every Sunday we get together. I'm a compulsive overeater, a binger, purger, food addict, and drug addict.
My name is Felice. I'm blessed and grateful to be in recovery, and this is our Why Wait for Recovery Sunday morning recovery meeting. Can you see if you could excuse us 1 second? On mine, hook me up to the internet. Just swipe down on the top.
Amit, go to the other side.
Yeah, just swipe down on the top.
Okay, sorry about this. We're having a little bit of a technical issue. We're getting back to you.
Yeah.
And so this has been a really
right there on the left. Just
this has been a really interesting week. We had a fantastic workshop yesterday. That we have a small group workshop that we run every single week. That we're going through the steps and our workbook.
Yeah, and yesterday was a lot of hard work, you guys. We were going through what is our 5th step, right?
Yes.
Which coincides with, I think, like 5, 6, and 7 or something like that in the big book. And when we talk about our own imperfections and we talk about taking a look at ourselves, which is what we need to do, is take a look at ourselves so that we can recover. When we're talking about that, it's a little scary and a little ouchy, right? And remember, when we find out what it is that we need to, when we find out what it is that we need to change, and it gives us a choice, right? So if we find out what it is that is eating us, it's fine. Oh, no, it's not. Yeah, what it is that's eating us, then we have the choice as to whether to sit where we are or to go ahead and change. And we talk often, about willingness, you know. We talk about how if everybody who needed to be in recovery or wanted to be recovery was actually in recovery, then everybody would be in recovery, right? And so we talk about the willingness to get started. And that willingness is something that we struggle with, right?
So I love that you've actually brought this up, because I was willing when I've lost 150 pounds in the last year and a half. But before that, I was willing to go to absolute extreme measures. When I look at what I did to my body, the extreme diets that I went on, the serial dieting, the ways that I treated myself and abused myself, between the binging and the purging, and ultimately actually going and paying an absolute fortune to have bariatric surgery, I was willing to do anything to lose weight. And it became an issue of the weight, of losing weight and looking good, but to actually be healthy was a whole different issue.
Right, and so you're talking about spiritual health.
Correct.
Right, and so you were willing to pay any amount of money for the quick fix.
Exactly.
Right, so here's $1 billion and just fix me, and I'll wake up tomorrow morning fixed. Correct. And that's how this is going to work.
Right.
But don't work like that, right? And so we talk about changing spiritually, changing emotionally, learning how it is that we're feeling, and learning how our perspective needs to change so that we can grow as people in recovery, right? Because if it was about the food, it wouldn't be a problem. We would just diet.
But it's quite amazing. I was willing to drive to totally different stores to get all the different food groups. I was willing to plan meals and do all these crazy things for diets. But when it actually came to doing the work for my recovery, it seemed so insurmountable and like so much work to actually sit down and actually start working on my recovery, that it became overwhelming, that I was actually stuck in the beginning and I couldn't move forward.
You know, in the big book, they say we thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. And the thing is, the recovery part of it is the easier, softer way. It's a whole less expensive. It's a whole less confusing. It's just the scary part of looking at me and saying, what is it inside me that's keeping me as an addict? What's allowing me to grow as an addict as opposed to spiritually grow as a person in recovery?
And I think it's also because we have, you know, the addiction part of it is that obsession part as well, that we're so busy using and using and using, and those foods actually, it's like mind control. It's almost like an alien takes over your body and you're not thinking clearly. So all you are, you're in this constant conflict with your body and your thoughts of, I need this, I want this, I have to have it now. And then no, you don't, and it becomes that willpower and that whole diet mentality and that addiction mode, because wouldn't it be great if willpower fixed everything?
Yeah, it would. And you guys, if we're going to define addiction, we're going to find addiction as a physical craving and a mental obsession. And so we know once we take that first drink or that first bite of bread, the physical craving comes, right? One is too many and 1,000 is never enough, meaning I can't have one because then I need to have the billion that come after. And that mental obsession of how and when and why and means to get more of what it is that I'm looking for.
So that's how we have these chocolate incidents.
The great chocolate incident.
So then we start playing those games. Yeah. Those games of the swapping, and if I only have this or I try have this, and it becomes that whole road of the whole day's passed and all you've been doing is thinking about your addiction and your obsession.
Right, which kind of almost makes it easier sometimes, you guys. And every single week we talk about how it's so hard to live with our addiction, but it's so hard to think about living without our addiction. Because living without our addiction means, okay, now I have a challenge. Now what am I going to do? What am I going to do when I can't pick up my drug of choice? That becomes the challenge. What also becomes the challenge once we're in active addiction is that now I get to look at my addiction all the time, because I'm stuck in that chaos, right? As opposed to looking at myself. So sometimes it feels like it's almost safer, you know what I mean? To actually deal with my addiction than it is to turn around and deal with myself and my own emotions and how I'm feeling and how it is that I can change so that I can get well.
And I think also there's that part where it's so scary, the thought of, for me, I was an addict for 42 years before I fell into the rooms. And no one falls into the rooms by accident. We're compelled to keep coming back for some reason. We might be taken by a friend, which I was, but we keep coming back because something inside of us, something speaks to us. But it is so comfortable being that way for so long that the thought of change and doing something different, I think for me was the scariest part of stepping into recovery, because it was so much easier control. I'm a control freak. I'm also that compulsive, obsessive, and I'm that neurotic kind of person. So I like being in control, and the thought of not knowing what the outcome looked like was one of the scariest things for me.
So we have this delusion of control, because you might like being in control, but you ain't control of anything, you guys. We are in control of our perspective and our actions. That's it. Everything else that happens in the universe, we have absolutely no control over. And the more you try to control your addiction and the crazier you got, the less in control you were of anything.
So I can't control the weather. I can't control my kids.
Doing this?
Well, I'm talking about when she was in active addiction.
Oh.
So when she's in active addiction and she's doing whatever she needs to do to have ways and means to get more, no, then she's not in control of anything that has to do with anything except for the addiction part of the addiction.
And Johnny actually just reminded me as well, because working in recovery is a heart-to-heart experience, being able to talk about the things that are really eating us. So for everyone who's joining us, we do live stream on Facebook and there's Zoom. You can join us in the room via Zoom if you want to talk. The best way to start getting healthy is by speaking. So please hop on this call or this live stream as well.
And we're going to go around the room and check in with everybody. Good morning, Karen. Can you hear us, Karen?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Yesterday was a good day, and so I'm feeling good.
Okay, and anything that you'd like to talk about yesterday, or?
Well, I attended my granddaughter's baby shower, which was great, but this is also the granddaughter that my other family members have the issue with, so it just kind of brings all that up, but I'm just having to realize that I don't have any control over how everybody sees whatever they see.
Right.
And I'm just going to be present, show up, love her, and just go forward.
And so this is something that you've been sharing about, which I'd like to commend you for that, by the way, because you have this challenge and you've been talking about it and working through it. So good for you, because that shows willingness to do some changing so that you could stay in recovery. So thank you for sharing that this morning.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Sarah, hi.
Sarah, you're on mute, hon.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I spent the Jewish Sabbath by Cousins in Long Island.
Oh, your internet is.
Yeah,
we can't hear
yeah,
you.
we
love.
can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi. So I spent the Sabbath by Cousins in Long Island, and the food was unbelievable.
Okay, and?
I was not abstinent. However, there was one particular food. I don't know if you named.
Okay, so let's stop. Let's stop. Let's stop. So we say in the rooms too, you know, if you're not clean, don't share about your using. So I understand that you weren't abstinent. After I'm not abstinent, there's no but. Right? They say everything after but is bullshit.
Right.
So I wasn't abstinent. Listen, I need for you to listen. Hear me, please. I wasn't abstinent. That's the end of that. Whether I didn't take the Percocet, but I only drank the tequila, it don't fly in my world, right?
Right,
So thank you,
right.
thank you for sharing. I know that you're having a difficult time being abstinent, and you are sharing about that, and so that's awesome. But okay, so you went somewhere and you weren't abstinent, you used, but there's nothing else to talk about that part.
Right, right. It's just, you know what I look at? That this particular thing I was afraid to use because I knew that if I took this particular thing,
I don't care.
and yet,
Yeah, I don't care. If you used, you used.
True.
And I know that sounds abrasive, but I don't care.
No, but
If we're
true, I mean,
right, if we're using, we're using. So next time, reach out to somebody in the community, or have an accountability buddy, or go to a meeting and get a sponsor.
right, right.
Okay.
Also, one other thing I wanted to say is I was with people who totally don't get addiction.
It doesn't
It's not my
matter.
job.
Okay,
it's not
but-
my job to teach them.
Okay, no, it's not your job to teach. First of all, you need to teach you. You haven't
Right.
taught you yet. And actually, we don't teach us. Our sponsors do, and our meetings do, and the people that we're hanging out, that we're reaching out to in recovery. Because if we could have gotten this ourselves, we wouldn't be sitting here in this room.
We're all always with people who don't understand
Correct.
addiction.
That's correct,
Right.
Johnny. That's absolutely correct. Right? Nobody gets it.
I had someone ask me about it, and they kind of want to know, and I was telling myself, why even bother? Because they give me this like stupid look.
Okay,
and,
but that's unimportant. So unless you're talking,
Right.
listen, unless you're talking to me about your sponsor or somebody that you've met in the rooms or your therapist, there's no reason to talk about how we need to change the world, because that ain't happening. The only person that I could change is me, my own perspective and my own actions. That's it. Okay?
Got
Thank
it.
you so much for sharing. Thank you. And do you want me to come back to you? You're good.
No,
I
I'm
didn't know
good.
if you're
I'm-
typing.
I
Good
am,
morning.
But it's okay, I'll share.
Good morning.
Good morning. I don't really have anything much to say. Yesterday I guess was only in the workshop. So yesterday I shared that I was struggling a little bit. I think I shared that. I'm struggling a little bit.
With?
Uh,
Susan is on Zoom. You're struggling a little bit with? Ask Susan to mute herself.
I don't know exactly with what. I just know that I don't know. I guess with just being in the fear of like moving forward in recovery, my recovery's progressed to a point where it's no longer that initial stuff that we think we have no control over. It's like real stuff now, and so yeah, struggling a little with that, but I haven't used or anything like that. It doesn't justify using. I just know that I have to keep doing what I'm doing and working towards it, and it'll get better in time as I continue to do the work.
Yeah, and so with you, you know, your thing is no matter how afraid you are to share something, you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's super important, and that's when we talk about willingness, that willingness to change. Unless you can get to that place, you'll never change.
Right.
Unless you could say, this happened and I feel like this, and even if you think that feeling is crazy or your perspective is crazy, so that you can get a handle on how to change your perspective to stay clean. And the only way that we do that, you guys, is by sharing. Again, if you could have gotten clean by yourself, you're an intelligent thinking young woman, right? Straight A student, all that stuff. If you could have done it yourself, you would have.
Yes.
Right. Very good.
Right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Johnny, you have anything to share this morning? Good morning.
You are so abrasive, Dr. Felice.
Thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, I have so much. I don't even know. It would be, you know, it's all personal, crazy stuff. And But you know, just living my life. You know,
Okay.
my
Okay.
abstinent life.
Okay. If there's anything that you want to share then during the meeting, you'll let us know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for being here this morning. Sarah?
Hi,
morning.
good morning.
What's up, girl?
Well,
Did you have a clean day yesterday?
I did.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I don't know. I think leaving here yesterday and just having different conversations made me realize that there are people who are living proofs of the effects of what can happen if to continue to stay in my disease. And you know, I'm 22 years old, and I know it's
I'm
been like
63.
You're 22 and?
you know, it's been probably like 7 years dealing with this, and just from these 7 years, it's been so much on me. So, you know, I just thought about if I can stop today, if I can try my best, and that's what I'm gonna do.
And so we touched on a lot of stuff yesterday, and we touched on how we put ourselves in the middle of other people's chaos, and then we use that as an excuse to have more chaos, or a reason to have more chaos in our own world, and that gives us the excuse to use, right? Because if you had all this chaos in your world, you wouldn't be able to deal with it either, and you would binge and purge. And so that's the thing that we're going to work on with you, is staying out of other people's chaos, right? You told me something and I said, what was it any of your business? It wasn't any of your business. It was something that was going on with somebody else, right? And so again, we say, when we don't want to take a look at ourselves, it's easier to look at our addiction, our using part of our addiction. Also, when we don't want to take a look at, if I don't want to take a look at me and what I'm doing, it makes it kind of easier if I'm taking a look at you and what you're doing, and what you're doing wrong, and what you're doing that upsets me, and what you're doing that upsets Johnny, and what you're doing that you're having a conversation with Lucy because da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and pay absolutely no attention to myself. Am I scared? Am I lonely? Do I feel unlovable? Right? Do I feel like I'm not good enough? Those things that we look at that are our part in this addiction. My part in my addiction is looking at myself, looking at my feelings, understanding what they are, and having somebody help me or teach me how to change my perspective so that I don't need to pick up. So remember, it's never going to be about the binging and purging, because the binging and purging is what you do. It's like, I have a flat tire. What am I going to do? I'm going to go and get a new tire and have somebody put it on my car, because I can't do that by myself. But so you're looking at, I'm going to go and get somebody to put the tire on my car. But you're not saying to yourself, I got a flat tire.
Yeah, I mean, I do always try to recognize my feelings. I mean, I think I'm aware, but first, you know, when it comes to certain people, I do my best to stay away because they overwhelm me. Like, it makes me feel overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to be a part of that craziness or whatever. Or if they're judgmental, I like to stay away the best.
Right, and I understand that, but the lesson for you, one of the first lessons for you, I believe, is for you to take yourself out of other people's chaos, for you to not take on what's going on with somebody else, because really that's none of our business.
I do, you know, I think from when I'm young, I do it with my parents. All the struggles they have, I've always taken it on me.
Okay.
And that puts a toll on me, so I have to agree.
Right, so you gotta
Stop
let that
feeling so
baggage
bad
go, man.
or whatever.
Right, right. And so that's something that you'll be able to learn to do as we're going through your step work.
How do you not get dragged into the mishigas and the people's lives who are in your life?
You decide not to.
Well, which brings me to the second thing. One of the things I'm always accused of people who I'm involved with is I hear this from everybody.
Everybody on the whole planet, yes.
Everybody. That I'm unavailable. And I am.
Okay, so
You know,
and?
And that works for me.
Okay,
I
and?
don't want to get dragged into
Perfect. Okay,
so,
awesome.
So, you know, where's the middle ground?
So it doesn't matter. There doesn't need to be a middle ground, and what your opinion of me is none of my business. So as long as I'm doing my best to do my best, if that means that I'm not going to get involved in a relationship with Joe Schmo because it's a negative relationship and it brings me down, that's my business. That's me taking care of me. What Haiti thinks about me not having a relationship with Joe Schmo, I don't care.
No,
That's
I
none
get
of my
accused
business.
of being unavailable
I
to
understand.
people I'm in a relationship.
I understand. So, okay. Yeah, but either that, anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do my best to do my best. Just because she needs something from me right now, don't mean I need to be that person. Right? I need to be who I am.
Angeli said something that I'm unclear on when she said that, you know, she can now deal with things that are, I forget what word, important or real or something. Isn't it all important and real?
No.
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 In the scope of things. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
In the scope of things, you realize that the things you worry about when you first start working on your recovery are insignificant to the actual things in life that are important. For example, this person doesn't like me. I messed up here. I said the wrong thing there. I did this wrong. Like the chatter in our head is kind of the stuff we have to iron through. And then once we get to that point, we realize that all of that was just like the stepping stone to deal with the real stuff.
Right, to take a look at ourselves and our own, thank you, Ange, and our own imperfections and say, okay, I act like this or I act like this to this. Now, how do I change it? In the beginning, it's just, I'm selfish. Everything that's happening in the world is happening to me and is about me. And that's crazy, you guys. The world turns the way that it does. And then after letting go of that, taking a look at myself and saying, okay, these are my defects, my character defects. What is it that I need to do to change? How do I change that? So that I can be happy, joyous, and free. Because when I'm worried about what Sarah thinks of me, I'm not happy. When I'm trying to manipulate Haiti so that I can get her to like me, I'm not happy. When I'm doing my best to do my best and understanding that Sarah and Haiti are two women doing their best to do their best, and however they feel, and that's not about me, that's recovery.
So is the reason we did and the yesterday thing, you know, with that list of, you know, laziness, procrastination, is to work on our defects?
It's to work on those so that they don't affect us, they don't make us unhappy. Right? If I'm walking around jealous, let's say jealousy is one of mine, which it isn't, but let's say jealousy was one of mine, and I'm jealous because you have a better car than I do, and I'm jealous because you have more friends than I do, and I'm jealous because you make more money than I do. Where does that leave me?
Where does it leave you?
It leaves me fearful, angry, lonely, and feeling like I'm less than. If I can look at you and say, oh my God, I'm so happy for you because you have that awesome car, maybe we could go out for a ride in it one day and we can listen to your stereo. You know, and you have so many friends, so maybe you can introduce me to some, you know, and you've got so many things I can make. So if my perspective is that I'm happy for you and where you are, as opposed to, oh, poor pitiful me, I don't have what you have, right? Who does that affect? It don't affect her, it affects me. And so if I could learn that jealousy is one of my things, and it's something that I can learn to change my perspective about, again, everything that we do, we're going to do so we can be as happy, joyous, and free as possible. Okay? Thank you. Allie, good morning.
Good morning. I don't really have anything to say.
Okay, and so I'm going to touch on what happened yesterday because I screwed up with you. And again, I'm really, really sorry. And I don't mean to giggle about it, but I'm a human being and I made a mistake. And you got angry. And you talked about it.
Yeah.
You said, I'm mad at you, right? I'm mad at you. I'm mad at Angela. You guys didn't pick up the phone. You didn't call me. You didn't whatever, you know. Mm-hmm. And her head immediately went to, you know, they think they're better than me, or they think, you know, they don't want to hang out with me, or whatever your head went to, as opposed to, so Felicia was a little scatterbrained yesterday and she had her phone shut off. And she forgot to send me the address, which was the truth. But after you talked about it, instead of keeping it in, you got to look at things differently, right? Because remember, and Susan, I know you're up on Zoom, but now you're not. And so Susan, Best Mom member, always says, there's the story that we tell ourselves, and then there's what's really happening, right? And so that was a story you were telling yourself, and you felt badly. And then there's what was really happening. Right, which is I would have loved for you to be at that meeting because it was a good meeting and you're going to come with us on Thursday, so I'm super excited about that.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So, but that was awesome because you just said it. You're like, yeah, I was effing mad at you. And I was like, yes.
I mean, and I think, like we had discussed yesterday, I think it was definitely necessary. I think even for Angeli, who like got some perspective from it as well. And definitely for me. So.
And first of all, you learned that you could say I'm effing pissed off at you, and did I get upset?
No.
I'm like, that's so awesome that you shared that with me. Thank you for sharing that, right? And I'm super sorry. Right? So,
Accepted, yeah.
right. No, I know that, but I'm saying too, so we all learn a lesson from that. Our honesty, everybody learns a lesson from our honesty, right? Even though we're being honest with ourselves, to be honest with ourselves. But it also helps when you reach out and say how you feel. It helps the rest of us work through something that maybe the rest of us needed to work through as well.
So I love that you shared yesterday, because one of my challenges is my ego and looking good. So I'm scared of losing friends. So I very often won't say things because I think I'm going to lose a friend over that. So I'll hold back on actually talking. And watching that whole interaction between the two of you, where you could honestly say how you are feeling and Felice could explain the situation, makes me think that it's not that bad to actually just have a real honest conversation with the person, instead of spending all that time like ruminating in my head, because that's what happens, is it gets worse and worse and worse the longer I leave it and the longer I sit in it, and 2 months later I'm really got a resentment, and a 2-second conversation at the time when it happened would have been so much easier to do for me. I mean, that was my learning.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing yesterday.
Yeah, and Ashley had said to you before, and I remember this, it was Ashley, I believe, that said to you that when you get mad, you hold on to it for so long without talking about it.
Yeah.
But you didn't yesterday.
Yeah.
So you held on to it for a couple of days until you saw us. And so that's a lesson learned with you. And you said what you had to say, and the universe didn't collapse. And I got to apologize.
Yeah.
Boy, did you unleash.
I was really proud of you
I
yesterday.
didn't- no.
Yes, ma'am.
You did.
Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna ask, so this was a situation like 2 years ago, whatever, with my grandma. What happens if you do confront a person, but right away they shut you down?
Okay, let's talk about confronting, because we talked about this yesterday. So let's talk about playing nice with others. So when you confronted her, which is a really big word, a really kind of tough word, but you confronted her how?
Well, she's a major root in where I am today,
Okay.
as far as disease-wise. But
Okay.
I wanted to ask her. I don't know. I just was in them. I wanted to ask her why, when I was younger, did it matter so much to her how I looked and how I looked and how I looked. So I just wanted to ask her, and right away she plays the blame.
Listen. So
shut me down immediately.
Right. And so when you talk about that, I'm going to tell you trauma-wise, and anybody that you see that knows anything about trauma-wise, when you ask that question, it takes you back to you being 4 or 5 years old, and you're going to have those same emotions. That's just how our brains work. So you were in a place where you were scared and angry and upset and felt unloved and unworthy. That was first. That's the place that you came from. Second of all, no matter how hard it is, remember when I say to you, how come you did this and how come you did this and how come you did this, I'm accusing you of something. Now, once I accuse you, you're going to get defensive. If I turn that conversation around and I learn to say, hey, Grandma, you know what? When I was younger, no matter what I looked like, you had something to say about that, and I want to let you know that it made me feel sad, and it made me feel lonely, and it made me feel unlovable, and I wanted to share that with you. But when we say, I always say to you guys, don't tell me what I did, tell me how you feel. I know what I did. I did it.
But what if the person doesn't recognize that they did?
Well, that's not your, that the only side of the street that you are responsible for is your own. So just because you're upset doesn't mean that I'm going to have that conversation with you, right? So I can't change you. I can't change people, places, and things. I can only change my perspective. Are you hurt and angry? Yeah. Did it make you feel as a child unlovable, unaccepted, and less than? Yes, it did. And so those are things that we work through with a therapist now, right? Are you going to change her? No. The only thing that you could do, but remember, as long as you're pointing a finger at me, I'm going to back up into the corner. Most people will back up into the corner. If you say, I felt like this, people are more apt to listen to you, because that's not an accusation. You're saying how you feel as opposed to how I effed up. And that's, you learn that in any class that you take about having a conversation. That's like Psych 101 stuff. And so we always want to say how we feel, not what we did. And I always give the same scenario. You and I are on the phone. You're saying something that upsets me and I hang up on you. And then you call me back and you say, I can't believe you hung up on me. Well, I can, because I just hung up on you. So I can believe I hung up on you. So, and, right? But if you say, you know, Felice, when you hang up the phone when I'm talking, it makes me feel like you don't care about me. It at least gives me a chance to look at you as a person and not as a person who's just accusing me of doing something.
I really like that.
I was just going to say that because I get hung up on by one of my brothers all the time. And I
Yeah,
don't
we
know
talked
how to
about
do
that.
it.
I like
Yeah, but that's the truth, you guys. So I'm only responsible for my own feelings. I can't be responsible for yours. Am I going to change you because you did something that I see as wrong? No. But I can get it out there and say what I need to say. As long as I'm accusing you, you're not going to hear me. If I'm saying how I feel, you still might not hear me. But at least my side of the street is clean. No matter what, you can't go back and change the way your grandmother treated you.
Well, yeah, I mean, to this day, no matter what point I'm at, she's always got something.
Okay, so you don't need to listen. So now you could say, you know what, Grandma, I'm an adult, and I got this boundary where if you don't have anything nice to say to me, I prefer that you don't talk to me. So let's have that understanding.
I always want to
Bam.
get nervous and I
Why?
don't say anything. She's like,
Why?
Why are you wearing?
Listen, look at me. Look at me. Stop the chatter in your head. Grandma, boundary. If you don't have anything nice to say to me, I'm going to ask you not to talk to me, and I'm going to respect you the same way. Thanks so much for listening. End of discussion. Right? We teach people how to treat us. So if you're telling me what a piece of shit I am, and I'm sitting there listening, that's about me. If I walk away, that's about me. If I take on the fact that you're mean and you're crazy and you're hurtful and you've hurt me my whole life and I take that on and I stay there and I allow myself to still be abused by you, that's about me.
You often speak about the dance.
Mm-hmm.
So we get into a dance with people, you know, until someone changes those steps. So we go, I have the same thing with my kids and my husband and my family, and up until I started really understanding this, it was what you did, what you didn't do, what you did, and it became this whole noise that never achieved anything, that everyone got upset about, and that would end up with everyone leaving angry and upset and frustrated. But it's very hard to argue with someone's feelings. When I say I'm feeling this way, no one can really tell you how to feel, because it's a feeling, and that's something that is so much clearer and easier to understand.
Yeah. Right, and nobody can tell you how to feel. Thanks. So, yeah, that's the point. People can't tell you how to feel. They can try to tell you what to do, right? But they're not really going to try to tell you how to feel. So, thank you.
I like that.
Miss Luce?
Hey.
Hey. So I was tough with you yesterday.
Yes, you were tough with me, but it was well worth it.
How are you tough with her? I don't remember you being tough with her.
We had a conversation about what her responsibility was in a conversation that she had with somebody.
No.
Yeah, and I did try talking to him about it, and it just was very one-sided and didn't penetrate very well.
Can you tell me how that conversation went?
It didn't go well. It didn't
Can
go...
you tell me what your words were?
No, I don't remember.
Okay.
But I know it didn't go well, and it probably was my fault because I've gathered more stuff from what you just said than I did yesterday.
Fair enough.
And I don't know if it's appropriate to go back and talk to him about that again and rehash it again. It's just going to irritate the whole situation with him. He's the kind of person that just likes to brush things under the carpet and just move on.
Okay.
And next weekend is his birthday party, and I'm supposed to be there, and I don't want to stir the pot anymore.
So we'll talk about it's kind of personal, and we're on Facebook. So we're going to talk about that privately after.
Right.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because we don't want to cut off our nose to spite our own face either.
Right.
Right, and we don't want to react to the way that somebody's acting if it's not going to be beneficial for it. Well, we never want to react. We want to think it through, right?
Right.
And so we'll talk about your perspective after.
But what on a good note is, because I didn't take that situation and the negativity of the situation and eat my way through the evening.
Good.
I was really in control last night, and I'm very proud of myself because that chocolate cake.
So what you're saying is, what you're saying is I didn't allow my own crazy to give me an excuse to use.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I ate very well last night.
Right. So you didn't use that as an excuse. I had this thing with my kid and poor pitiful me, and so I think I'll pick up because the world is so horrible anyway. I might as well be.
Correct.
Right? They say, we didn't get clean to stay miserable.
And I had a great time at the party.
Good.
I really enjoyed the party. I didn't have to enjoy the food. I enjoyed the party.
Good.
And it was very nice.
And so that also meant that you weren't walking around with the thoughts in your head about that conversation.
Nope.
Right. And so that's part of recovery. Is acceptance is the answer to all of my challenges today. Right? Acceptance. I need to accept the way that you are. Otherwise, I'm unhappy because I'm fighting against something that I can't win.
Right.
Right? Thank you.
No, thank you.
Good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
What's up, girl?
Happy to be here. Missed all of you. Yeah, everything's good, thank God. What I'm working on now, I'm noticing, well, not noticing it, but I'm really like doing it. I can't miss out on anything. So I say yes to everything. And then when it comes down to it, I realize that I'm only one person, and I can't be everywhere. But it's like I say yes. Could you do this job? Sure.
I got it.
Yeah.
Haiti, I'm going to have you address that because you used to talk about that, if you will, about being everything to everybody.
So one of my challenges is my ego. As I've said this before, I'm always looking good to other people at the downfall of myself. So the big focus was making everyone else happy and doing and being very busy. So firstly, it stopped me dealing with me in a sense. So it gave me an excuse because I can pick up for any reason. For me to pick up this second, if I'm not strong in my recovery, I can use any excuse, be it that you asked me to do so much and you don't appreciate what I've done for you, or I'm having such a crazy day, or the kids spoke to me in the wrong way, or you looked at me in the wrong way, or today's Sunday. I can use any excuse to pick up. So I found it was a couple of things. One is it gave me great excuses to use, because then I could always blame everyone else except look at what I was doing. The other thing was I was so insecure in myself that I needed to look good. So for me, looking good has always been part of my challenge. And that looking good is by saying yes to everything. Firstly, I'm not going to make everyone happy. I've realized that in the long run. I thought I could make everyone happy all the time until I realized the person I was making the most unhappiest is me. And also, people are going to do whatever they're going to do. So by doing that, I've stopped that martyr kind of philosophy because it doesn't actually serve me in any way. So I do things firstly because I think, number one, being of service is essential in my world. And that being of service is being able to do things that I feel from the heart without expecting anything back. So if I say I'm going to do something, I do it because it makes me feel good, not because it makes me look good, or because I think that it's what you want me to do to make you happy. So service became a different shift, and getting in recovery becomes, I don't expect things, and some things I'll do without even telling you that I'm doing it because it makes me feel good. Because being anonymous and just doing things and having that humility to go out and do things makes me feel good. But it also sets certain boundaries with people. So one of the things that I get being in recovery and being abstinence, because abstinence for me is key in being able to think clearly, because when I don't remember what happened last week. I mean, I don't even remember what happened yesterday. So the thing is, I need to be able to have those boundaries, because those boundaries are the things that keep me healthy.
Also, when we're so busy doing stuff for other people, we don't give ourselves time to take a look at ourselves, right? So I don't need to, yes, that was a boundary, thank you. Okay, that was so. So as long as I keep myself busy, and I'm taking care of her, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and I'm making sure that I don't need to take 5 minutes to take a look at myself today. I don't need to take 5 minutes to go over my day and said, what could I have done better? What could I have done more from the heart today? How could I have taken care of myself better? How could I have been of service as opposed to, and I love that you said that. Service is something, thank you for saying that. Service is something that we do with absolutely no expectation of getting something back. And we talked a lot about this in the beginning, right?
Yes.
Where I would show up, this little girl didn't know me, and I would show up to her house, and we saw each other every day. And in the beginning, I believe that you said that, you know, she needs, there's got to be something in it for her. And what there was, what there was in it for me was that I got to help somebody else who was sick and suffering. It gets to get me out of my own head. What did I want back from her? Nothing. Nothing. I wanted to help if I could. I didn't want her to wash my car. I didn't want her to take care of my kids. I didn't want her to give me money. And I didn't want her to like me any more or any less than she would. And that's for sure. Because it's not like I was the most likable person when you first met me.
Can I explain the situation?
You got 15 seconds.
Okay, I'll say it really fast. So, I am not going to work this week because of surgery, dental surgery. So I knew that I probably would have to work this weekend. But when other things came, I was like, yeah, I'll dress up as Minnie. Yeah, I'll do this. And what happened was, I couldn't. I'm starting to have panic attacks because I can't do it all. And then my sons had to cover for me in other jobs.
Okay, and so what's the feeling behind it?
I'm scattered. I'm not focused.
So we're going to talk about, excuse me, so you're putting yourself in chaotic situations.
Exactly.
So you're putting yourself in the middle of chaos. So that's what we do as addicts when we're in active addiction.
Well, I'm not
so
an
chaos,
active addiction, but I'm just saying, instead of just hang up and think first.
Right, so remember, addiction has nothing to do with the food or the Percocet or the pot, right? It's here, right? So when I'm in recovery, I learn not to overextend myself because I don't need to be sitting in the middle of all that chaos.
Right.
That chaos is something that you're choosing. So you need to look at, why am I choosing that? Haiti said, it's my ego. I want to look great to everybody else, right? Because if I look great on the outside, no one's going to ask me how I am on the inside.
Even to an employer.
Doesn't matter who it is. It matters why it is.
Right.
And why that is. And so you said that you're abstinent, so that's awesome. You've been abstinent from pot for how long?
3.5 weeks.
Good. And what about rice, bread, potato, pasta, and sweets?
Well, I eat bread occasionally.
Okay.
If because I like a little.
Okay, yeah, and so so that's something that we don't consider abstinent if in fact you're a food addict. If in fact you're a food addict, and you may not be. So okay, well, so if you're a food addict, then you haven't been abstinent, and that's okay if you just say, yeah, I'm working on it. Because as long as you're guys, as long as we're triggering the dopamine receptor, it keeps our brain in active addiction. That's the mental obsession and physical compulsion, right? It's going to keep us like that. It's going to ask us for more and more and more. Yes, ma'am.
When you're done.
I'm done.
I noticed you said just now, well, I don't remember what you said, but what I have to say is that I think it's important. You and I had this conversation a lot in the beginning. Just because you're abstinent does not mean you're not in active addiction, because
right.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. And so actually what we're saying is, I'm just going to turn it around a little bit. Yeah. So just because I'm not using doesn't mean I'm in recovery.
Right.
Is
that what I said?
You said active addiction, which is what I said as well.
Okay.
So, but the recovery part of it is, remember, recovery is me working on me. Right? And so it's not about the food, it's about how I'm feeling and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. So, clean time in recovery, we have to have clean time so that we can work on our recovery. Right? And then we have to stay clean, or we choose. We don't have to do nothing. We choose to stay clean so that we could choose to be in recovery. Yes, ma'am?
Right, so it's the two-part thing, because when we're picking, I was abstinent for nearly a year before I relapsed. and I wasn't in recovery. I was walking into the rooms, I was going to meetings, I was doing all this stuff to show up and look good.
She was a lion.
But I was lying to myself, okay? And the thing is, I was doing I thought recovery, that it was once you did the steps, you're done. It was like the pill. I thought if you didn't, you automatically got recovery, you got the gold star, and you graduated.
You don't?
Okay? No, okay? So that was the point that I realized. But there was also the other side. We forget that we've got a disease, and that disease is when we put certain things into our bodies, it reacts in our bodies. It's like if you got a bee sting and you're allergic to bees. So if I put this crap in my body reacts. It affects my thinking, it affects the way my nose swells up and I start snoring at night and all these other things, and my body retains whatever it is. Everyone's different, but it affects my thinking. And when I'm in that addictive thinking mode, the chaos I create in my world permeates through my family. It doesn't just, everyone around me gets affected. So I start making their lives crazy. They start doing things that I'm incapable of doing because I said yes so often to so many people that I get them spinning. And when I look at my addiction, remember the guys in the Chinese circuses when we used to go to, and they had the plates that were twirling plates all the time? That is what my world looks like. I've got so many plates going that if I stop twirling one, they'll all start crashing down. And that's chaos for me. That becomes so chaotic. And the last thing I have in that scenario is serenity and peace and happiness, because all I'm doing is I'm exhausted at the end of the day. I've been wearing myself out, and I'm still trying to make sense of everything and explain everything, because all I've been doing is explaining to everybody and in my head as well.
So we'll never stay clean unless we get rid of whatever is triggering our dopamine receptor. That's physiology.
Because I still drink if I feel like drinking.
I love that you pick up, okay?
So, you guys, I'm going to start drinking if I feel like it.
Because I started dating 2 men, and
so now we're going to blame the dude.
dude.
Let's blame everybody and not say today I picked up. Which, by the way, thank you again for saying today I picked up. So yeah, you're still picking up. That's all. That's all. You could let it go there. So, and from now on, I'll do my best, but that's where I'm at right now.
So for me, I'm an addict, and that is using anything that changes the way that I feel.
Altering substance.
Doesn't matter what it is. It could be food, cigarettes, pot, you name it. I can do any of that to change the way that I'm thinking rather than dealing what I'm feeling.
And change the way that we're feeling. Right.
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What I don't understand when you're talking about, everybody's talking about what it is that makes them pick up. Mm-hmm. But I thought the whole charm of being an addict is you don't need a fucking reason.
And that's very true. And so we do need an emotional reason. We do. There's a reason why we want to change the way that we're feeling. We don't need an excuse. We don't need I'm dating 2 guys and so I'm drinking because it's their fault. But we are trying to stuff some kind of feeling when we're using, right? We're changing the way that we feel when we use, right? So we are changing the way that we feel. So why don't we just feel good enough not to use?
Because we're addicts.
Well, yeah, but why? Thank you, and that's true. But what is it that we're addicts. What is it that I'm feeling right now that makes my brain say to me, I don't want to feel this right now. I'd rather use. I'd rather change the way that I'm feeling with some mind-altering substance.
Because you want to escape.
Right, because we're right, and so escape absolutely is the same thing as saying stuff myself, numb myself, escape, not feel. They're all synonymous. Yes, ma'am.
Just going back, I just want to say that I think that's a really great perspective, and even for me to think about it that way, is that just because you stop picking up the drug of choice does not mean you're in recovery, because it's all about how you think. So I might not be binging and purging, but still a lot of crazy in my head, so I don't feel well up here. But
exactly, but you gotta stop the behavior in the beginning,
of course,
so that we could clean out our brain, so that we could understand what it is that we're feeling, so that we can stop the behavior for good. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that.
I'm sorry.
Can I just say something? You guys on Zoom, if you want to jump in, you can. Just unmute yourself and jump into the conversation.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you.
Sorry, Ange.
In reference to what Sarah was saying, I just wanted to say that I think
it's okay.
Well, she said just because I stopped binging and purging doesn't mean I'm in recovery.
Yeah, I think okay, so when I started working with you, I was lucky enough to not be doing anything except working on recovery 24/7. Pretty much, we were going to meetings, we were doing step work. I was with you side by side, doing everything. And I think one day we were like 2.5 months in, and I turned to you and said, "So am I in recovery now?" and you kind of laughed at me and you explained it to me, but I think it's an important thing to talk about because I was doing everything anybody could be doing. I was working on my recovery 24/7. Literally, I was dreaming about recovery and relapsing and all that stuff because that's how much I was working on it. And it's not until 4 or 5 months in, I think, you said to me, now you're in recovery.
Well, and so let's change what I said. Let's change what I saved for the future. When we're working on our recovery, we're in recovery. We've stepped into recovery, right? So there's not a certain point where we get it or we get better. Personally, for me as your sponsor, you're going to say something, and I'm going to say that's what somebody in recovery would say.
Right.
That's exactly what how somebody in recovery would look at it or deal with it. But if we're abstinent, we're abstinent. And the day that we get abstinent, if we're working toward our recovery, that's our journey in recovery. Right. So yes, I am going to say that yes, we are in recovery. The first day, the second day, the third day. Do we look at things differently? Do we have that spiritual change the first day? No. Spiritually, are we going to change over time? Yes. Will we get healthier? Yes, we will, as long as we continue to work on our recovery. Thanks, Ange.
And I think part of that is we all come into the rooms because our life is unmanageable on a certain level. I mean, there's something that's going on that we can't keep living the same way that compels us to come and keep coming back. But I also think we're fighting against our addictive brain, that we're only open to hearing and listening to certain things. Even though we might come willing, I think it takes a process before we actually absorb or actually are able to see things or hear things in a different way and really be open to taking it on.
Yeah, so somebody said yesterday, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. So when you're ready to get that certain part of the message, you will.
I get that now. So even though I'm always willing,
you're always willing what?
To change my life and to give up the substances and to go.
Well, remember,
and
there's a difference between wanting it. And there's a difference between being able to do it, because everybody wants it and everybody's able to do it. Willingness means I am every single day working on what it is that I need to do to keep myself in recovery. That's the willingness. Do you have a sponsor?
No.
Why? Are you going to meetings?
Occasionally.
You going to meetings but you're drinking?
Yeah, occasionally I go to meetings when I'm...
So here's the thing about willingness. If you're willing, get into the rooms and get yourself a sponsor and stop drinking. That's pretty simple. You guys, that's kind of like the ABC, right? Put down my drug of choice. For you, if you're not a food addict, eat whatever you want to eat. If you're calling yourself a food addict, you need to be abstinent from the things that touch the dopamine receptor. So willingness isn't just coming into a room and saying, okay, yeah, I'm willing, but you're not. Because you're not taking the steps that you need to take to get there. You're just talking about it. Yes, ma'am.
So the question is, what are you willing to do to get healthier and better? That's a great challenge.
Okay.
So we
now
have
think of a challenge.
Right. So we actually have a private group on Facebook called Downsizing Weight Loss. It's for members only. You can either go there if you're not a Facebook person, do it through our website, so whyweight.net. The challenge is, what are you willing to give up to get healthy and happy?
Okay, and so that giving up can be your substance. It could also be our way of thinking.
A behavior.
Right, our behavior or something that we're doing emotionally that's hurting ourselves or others.
Because it always reminds me, you always say the first step is honesty.
Right.
So if we can really start with that principle of honesty and look at this clearly and say, what are we really willing to do?
Right. Are you willing to stop blaming the guys for your drinking? Are you willing to stop getting in the middle of somebody else's chaos? Are you willing to say how I'm feeling today? Are you willing to change your thinking about having a conversation? Right? That's willingness to change. Saying, oh yeah, I'm really willing to change, doesn't mean nothing because you're not doing anything to prove to yourself that.
question.
Okay, we're gonna have to make this a quick question because
Do we have
Okay.
the promises?
My ex was in rehab for pills.
Uh-huh.
When he came out, he still drank.
I don't care. We're
No.
not going to have that conversation.
No. My question is that so you could still do?
No, you can't. That's why I said I don't care.
Oh, okay.
Any mind-altering substance.
anything that changes how we feel.
In Narcotics Anonymous, they say alcohol is a drug, right?
Right.
Right. Alcohol is a drug.
So I've got the food, the smoking, I've got a million drugs. They're just my drug of choice, whatever that happens to be at that stage and whatever's available.
Yeah, whatever her addiction or choice is.
Right.
So remember, it's not about the drinking and the drugging and the anorexia and the overeating and the gambling and the sex and the whatever. It's about why we're doing what we're doing. But as long as we're using a mind-altering substance, we're never going to figure out why it is we're doing what we're doing because we're in active addiction mode.
And also can also be beyond the substance. Me, I'm a binger purger, so the purging side of me is also an addictive thing.
So is
it's
anorexia.
Right. So I just want to quickly wrap up for today because we are running out of time. Wednesday night, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Got it right. So we meet again. You can live stream us on Facebook. You can join us via YouTube. You can join us in the rooms on Zoom. The one thing that we really are propelled to do and compelled to do is be of service. So we reach out to you and suggest that you do the same thing. Share this with anybody that could be suffering or struggling or really dealing with addiction. It is horrific to live with. It is terrible to think that you're alone and no one else cares.
Yeah, addiction sucks, you guys.
It
Can I
really
just
does.
ask a question? I know we're
Quick,
winding up,
quick.
but it's
Go ahead.
It's a brilliant question.
Go ahead.
That you were and the one on, I think Wednesday or someone you were talking to Susan. Is that who Susan was?
Yeah.
And you were saying, you know, you do this, you do that, you do all this goodness, you do this, you do this, and she goes, yeah, except when I don't. And I started to laugh because you know, sometimes you do and sometimes you don't.
Right.
So how do you
She's
negotiate
not in active addiction,
Right.
and she's talking about her behaviors or her feelings. And so what she was saying is, I'm not perfect, but I do my best to do my best.
And that's all
I
that
know
we
her
can do.
because I've lived with her forever. But yeah, so that's exactly.
We can show up and do our best to do our best.
In the rooms, they say progress, not perfection.
Right. So the
Right.
challenge is, what are you willing to give up? Start posting that. Also, gratitude. We do a gratitude journal every single day. 3 things we're grateful for, our strength for the day. Not every day is a great day, but good things do happen. And if we can focus on that, we can change our perspective.
Oh, and also thank you for reminding me. Yeah, and so I am going to put up the spiritual principles. So we have a spiritual principle challenge also that we did yesterday was in our gratitude list. We're going to do the three things we're grateful for, which we always do. And one of our strengths for the day, for the next 7 days, we're going to pick one of the spiritual principles behind the 12 steps. And so I promise to post them. I promise to post them on Facebook. So we'll do the 3 things we're grateful for, and we'll pick from the spiritual principle
So
list
sorry,
as
for
our
the next
strength.
7 weeks, we're doing a spiritual principle
For the next 7 weeks. Okay, all good.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Awesome.
So that's really actually a good idea, because then instead of just doing 7 out of the 12 and letting it go, we can repeatedly do it. So that's a good idea, because that's how we learn, actually,
Right.
with repetition. So thank you. You guys, I'm going to read the promises from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want everybody to listen to this first line. If we are painstaking, doesn't mean if I half-ass it. It doesn't mean if I say I want to, but if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that the universe does for us what we can't do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? I don't think so. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly, but they will always materialize if we work for them. I'm so blessed and grateful to be in recovery. Thank you for joining our Why Wait for Recovery Sunday morning meeting. Hades?
I am so blessed for all of you. You helped me in my recovery. I just wish that you have a wonderful, happy week, healthy week.
Yeah, thank you for helping us with our recovery, you guys. Felice, blessed and grateful.
Haiti, peace out, everybody.
Peace out, you guys.